Bookmark. My soul floated upwards, watching as my parents exchanged calculating glances. My father dialed the arranged marriage broker and said, "A fresh corpse can sell for a good price. My daughter is still a virgin, 200,000, not a cent less." Their eyes gleamed with greed as they stared at my lifeless body. My entire forearm had been shredded to pieces by the machine's propeller. My mother glanced at me and scoffed. Even in death, she still manages to disgust me one last time. But I remembered the excruciating pain crushing me in my final moments, making it impossible to breathe. By my hospital bed, the doctor urged them multiple times to sign the consent forms, but they were too busy negotiating with the factory director, raising the price from 500,000 to 800,000. Finally, I exhaled my last breath. All these years, I had been a dutiful daughter, supporting my parents and providing for my younger brother. It was nothing but a cruel joke. A wave of dizziness washed over me, and when I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the summer right after the college entrance exams. In front of me was a bowl with 2 folded slips of paper inside. My parents told me and my brother to draw lots to decide who would go to college. They had always favored my brother, but this time they told me, the elder sister, to draw first. I sneered and unfolded both slips of paper. Each one had the same word: not. Neither of us was meant to go. My parents' faces stiffened before they quickly put on a pitiful act. The family can only afford to send one child to college. My younger brother Ryan, who had been pampered his whole life, stood there silently, afraid to speak. He simply watched me. In the past, I only saw him as my sibling, someone who shared the same blood. Now, I saw him for what he truly was, a parasite feeding off me under our parents' protection. This time, I had a student loan. I was determined to go to college. "If you want a son so much, then take care of him yourselves." My brother was only a year younger than me, yet he blocked my parents and said, "Emma, you can't talk to Mom and Dad like that." I shot back, "If you're so filial, why don't you stay home and take care of them?" His face turned red. He had nothing to say. I had been accepted into a prestigious university, one of the top-tier schools. Ryan, on the other hand, barely got into a low-ranked private college. I was admitted to study computer engineering, while he chose English literature. My parents didn't understand what computer engineering was. They only believed that Ryan, as a future scholar with a pen in hand, would bring honor to the family. But in those years, studying computer science meant riding the wave of the internet boom. Many graduates made a fortune early on. In my past life, my parents schemed against me and forced me to work in a factory, doing assembly line labor. Most of my wages went straight to supporting Ryan. Meanwhile, the girls from my village who had gone to college thrived. Many became successful professionals in the city, admired by everyone, and me? I spent endless nights working grueling shifts, trapped in a dead-end job with no future. Yet my scores had been higher than theirs. I could have attended an even better school. I refused to repeat the same fate. My father grabbed a belt and whipped me, chasing me around the village, shouting, "Ungrateful girl, how dare you defy your parents? You're just a worthless burden." Clutching my acceptance letter, I ran straight to the village chief's house. The old village chief, Mr. Thompson, shielded me behind him and said, "It's rare for a village girl to get into university, especially a top school like Tech University. John, don't be ignorant." My father refused to listen, and Ryan eagerly added fuel to the fire. He boasted endlessly about his own college while saying little about mine. When the village women asked him about my school, he shrugged and muttered, "I don't really know. I just heard it's hard for girls with a computer science degree to find a job." Hearing this, my father looked uncertainly at the village chief. "Is that true? My son says it's not a good school." Mr. Thompson glanced at Ryan, who was avoiding his gaze, and sneered, "That's nonsense. You two barely have any education, and yet you keep ruining your daughter's future. 2 kids in college, many families would envy you. And let me tell you, Emma's university is the best one any student in this village has gotten into this year." My father awkwardly rubbed his hands together. Is her school really that good?" The village chief shot him a look. "The government has policies now. No matter how poor you are, you can still afford an education. No matter what, you can't make your daughter give up her future. He patted my shoulder and took my acceptance letter. I'll keep this for you, just in case certain people get any stupid ideas and try to tear it up. Then he said, tomorrow, I'll take you to apply for a student loan. I nodded. As my father and I left the village chief's house, he turned to me and asked, that science and technology university of yours, is it really that good? Can you make a lot of money after graduation? My father scoffed. Do you think your mother and I raised you for free? I looked at him coldly. Everyone at school tells you that this university is a great choice, but you don't believe them. You only believe your son. He glanced at me, and I knew he understood exactly what Ryan was up to. But still, he shot me a fierce look and said, your brother is still young. As his sister, you should know to put him first. Fine, go ahead and get a student loan, but don't expect a cent from us for your living expenses. The family can only afford to support one college student. My mother was surprised that he even allowed me to go. She frowned and asked, if Emma goes to college, how are we supposed to afford Ryan's tuition and living expenses? My father said coldly, let the village chief help her apply for a student loan. She can figure out her own living expenses. The fact that we're letting her go to school at all is already a favor, and now she dares to ask for money? As for Ryan, he waited until our parents had gone inside before sitting beside me. His voice was calm, almost smug. Do you really think Mom and Dad favor boys over girls? He smirked. The truth is, I am a boy. Of course, they love me more. One day, I'll be the one to bring honor to this family. You, on the other hand, are just going to get married off. So why bother struggling to go to college? Why not start working early and help out with my living expenses? I can even write you an IOU. When I have a job in the future, I'll pay you back. I laughed in disbelief. Ryan, then you better make sure to take good care of those parents who adore you so much. I had already decided that once I left for college, I would never return to this house. I had always known that my parents were biased. Ryan was allowed to live in the dorms at the county high school, but I had to attend the local school in town because they refused to pay my 50 yuan monthly dormitory fee. Instead, they made me walk 20 miles through the mountains every day to get to school. Girls need to be hardworking, they said. Girls need to be sensible and understand their parents' hardships. Yet, they never told Ryan any of that. At my school, I was ranked first. Ryan, at his better-funded county school, was ranked 300th. And yet, if his grades improved by just 2 points, our parents would kill a chicken in celebration and give him 100 yuan as a reward. Meanwhile, no matter how well I did, they never praised me. They would just say, the schools in town aren't as good as the ones in the county. When the college entrance exams come, we'll see who does better. Then the exams came. I ranked among the top in the entire county. My parents, instead of being proud, brushed it off as dumb luck. Worse, they secretly blamed me for stealing Ryan's academic fortune. They weren't ignorant. They knew I was smart, that I had worked hard. They just didn't want to admit that the better child was their daughter. I looked up at the sky. The countryside was always full of stars. Many nights I had stood on the mountaintop, staring at the endless galaxy, dreaming of a future where I controlled my own destiny, where I could finally see the world beyond this small village. But in my past life, from 18 to 25, my best years had been wasted in a factory. Days and nights spent on an assembly line, earning wages based on the number of pieces I completed. The only way to make a little extra was to work faster, harder. After sending money home for Ryan's living expenses and giving my mother household money, I had barely anything left for myself. Then came the day everything changed. My father showed up at my workplace, beaming. Ryan's getting married. He found a girl from the city, an only child. We need money for the wedding. I didn't even have time to process it before he dropped the real bombshell. We found someone for you too, he continued. A middle-aged man from the neighboring village. He's got a bad leg, but his family is willing to pay 200,000 in dowry. I had been so shocked, so furious, that I wasn't paying attention to my work. My arm got caught in the machine, and as I lay there, bleeding out, I saw my parents haggle over my life. How they raised the price from 500,000 to 800,000. How they remarked that my corpse was still fresh, perfect for an arranged marriage deal. A family like this, I wanted nothing to do with them. Not in this life. Not ever. Ryan was still mumbling beside me, his voice filled with irritation. You've been acting so different these past few days. You're not like the sister I remember. I turned to him. And what kind of sister do you remember, Ryan? The kind who gives you everything without question. He lowered his head. Emma, why don't you believe that I'll take care of you in the future? I scoffed. Ryan, no matter what happens, a person can only rely on themselves. We fell silent. Without another word, we went to our separate rooms. My room was really just a tiny cot in the corner of the kitchen. The walls were blackened from years of smoke, the dim light flickering weakly. It was the only space I had ever known. I used to believe that if I worked hard enough, my sacrifices would be repaid. That one day, my efforts would be acknowledged. But I had learned the truth. The only rewards that mattered were the ones I earned for myself. The wind outside picked up. Through the thin walls, I could hear my parents' voices. She's so dark-skinned now, my mother muttered. Not that anyone would want her anyway. She'll be worth more once she graduates, my father said matter-of-factly. By then, the dowry price will double. Why is it always our son who has to earn everything? My eyelashes trembled as I forced myself not to cry. The next morning, Mr. Thompson, the village chief, arrived on his bicycle to pick me up. He smiled at me kindly as I climbed onto the back seat. Study hard, he said, and once you leave, don't come back. I didn't say anything, and he continued speaking as if to himself. My daughter was the one who processed your household registration back then. Your parents originally wanted to name you after your brother, give you a name that made it clear you were secondary to him. She changed it to Emma. He sighed. If you get the chance, go far away. The farther, the better. If you stay here, your parents will pick you clean until there's nothing left. Thank you, Mr. Thompson. To apply for a student loan, my parents had to sign the documents. The moment they heard this, they reacted as if facing a mortal threat. They were afraid that if I failed to repay the loan, the debt would fall on them. They refused to sign unless I knelt before them and swore an oath in front of the entire village. So, I knelt on the hard stone pavement. Ryan stood to the side, smirking. See, Emma? What a hassle it is for you to go to school. Even if you're at a top university, what's the point? My father, holding a loudspeaker, gathered the entire village at the communal stage. His voice rang out, demanding that everyone witness this moment. Countless pairs of eyes bore into my back, burning through me with shame and humiliation. I felt as if I were being skinned alive, exposed for all to see. Then, an elderly woman in the crowd finally snapped. John, you are disgusting. You refuse to support Emma's education, but do you think our entire village can't afford to send one student to college? My father gripped the loudspeaker tighter and shouted back, letting my daughter go to school is already a favor, and now you want me to take on debt for her? No way. Girls are meant to get married. Why should I spend money raising someone else's wife? My mother, embarrassed but too afraid to confront her husband, turned her anger on me instead. She twisted my ear, her voice dripping with contempt. Shameful. Just shameful. If you had just gone to work in the factory like we told you, we wouldn't be in this humiliating mess. Several village women pulled her away from me, but the damage was done. The weight of their insults, the heat of the midday sun, and the sheer humiliation made sweat soak through my clothes. My hands trembled as I clenched them into fists, my entire body drenched in sweat and shame. Mrs. Zhang, one of the older women in the village, helped me up. Child, go to school. Don't listen to them. Mr. and Mrs. Kui stood in front of me, blocking my parents' furious glares. Mr. Kui spoke up, his voice firm. Our village has worked hard to pull itself out of poverty these past few years. Not many kids make it to college. John, a man without a conscience who mistreats his own daughter, will face consequences one day. My father spat on the ground. Easy for you to say, it's not your money. Just then, Mr. Thompson arrived with a group of people. Leading them was his daughter. She snatched the loudspeaker from my father's hands and announced, "The government has policies in place now. Education must continue, and for students admitted to top universities, local businesses are providing scholarship funds. Emma can go to school without worrying about money." At that moment, my tears finally spilled over. It felt like the invisible hand strangling my fate had finally loosened its grip, allowing me to breathe. Hearing this, my parents immediately pushed through the crowd toward Mr. Thompson's daughter. "Wait, what do you mean?" my father demanded. "Some big business is paying for Emma's tuition?" "Well, in that case, can her share just go to Ryan instead? He's a college student too. Emma can figure out her own expenses. That way, my wife and I won't have to struggle so much." The crowd fell silent, stunned by their shamelessness. Mr. Thompson narrowed his eyes and let out a cold laugh. "Emma is not livestock. She is a human being, a living, breathing person. Since you refuse to acknowledge her, then she has no reason to acknowledge you either. From now on, Emma is a daughter of Goldwater Village, not a member of the Smith family." A murmur of approval swept through the crowd. One of the village women, Mrs. Jang, seized my father's collar and shouted, "John, you shameless bastard, we neighbors have let you get away with mistreating your daughter for years, but if you keep letting that useless son of yours walk all over her, I swear I won't stand for it." My mother suddenly sneered. "Ha? Look at you, Zhang, running your mouth like you matter. You're just bitter because you never gave birth to a son." "I think you're just jealous that I have a son," my mother sneered. Then, to everyone's shock, Mrs. Zhang lunged at her. The two women began pulling at each other, yelling and cursing. The village chief quickly had a few people step in to separate them. Mr. Thompson turned to me. "Emma, there's an empty room at the village committee building. You can stay there. Before you leave for school, keep your acceptance letter and all the scholarship money with you." I nodded, but I could still feel my mother's hateful glare piercing through me. The crowd gradually dispersed, and a few of the village women took me back home to pack my things. I didn't own much. My clothes for all 4 seasons were just school uniforms. In summer, I had short sleeves. In spring and fall, long sleeves. In winter, a single cotton jacket. During the coldest months, I had to layer my summer short-sleeved shirts underneath because that was all I had. At least each season's uniform came in 2 sets so I could alternate between them. I remembered, in my past life, seeing a post online from a factory worker who asked why middle school students weren't allowed to wear their own clothes. The comments were full of complaints, criticizing how uniforms stifled individuality and creativity. But honestly, I was grateful for school uniforms. If it weren't for them, I wouldn't have made it through the scorching summers and freezing winters. I had no extra clothes to change into, and my parents would never spend money on clothing for me. To them, as long as I could work and didn't starve to death, that was enough. Mrs. Zhang and Mrs. Kui looked at my small pile of clothes with tears in their eyes. "Emma, is this really all you have?" I nodded. From the doorway, my mother let out a sharp laugh. "What money do we have to dress her up? Besides, look at her, dark-skinned, skinny as a twig. No matter what she wears, she'll still look ugly." Mrs. Kui's sharp eyes immediately caught sight of Ryan's brand new Nike sneakers. She scoffed. "Bullshit. Your son looks like a damn landmine, and yet you still bought him those fancy shoes." She turned to me. "My daughter told me those cost several $100. My mother smirked. "Of course I spent money on my son. You're just like Zhang, never managed to give birth to a boy, so of course you don't understand. What's the point of wasting money on daughters? They'll just end up benefiting someone else's family when they get married. My son is studying in the county, surrounded by well-off classmates. How could I let him be looked down on?" Mrs. Zhang didn't bother arguing. Instead, she picked up my clothes, grabbed my hand, and pulled me outside. "Come on, girl. I'm taking you to buy some decent clothes. You're going to college, you can't still be wearing school uniforms." Tears welled up in my eyes. "I don't want to trouble you." Mrs. Kui patted my shoulder. "Emma, stop looking back. You have a new path ahead of you. No matter how hard it is, you have to keep going." Mrs. Wang and Mrs. Li chimed in, nodding in agreement. Seeing that I would have to live alone in the village committee's small room before school started, Mrs. Kui couldn't bear it. She insisted I stay with her family instead. The small room she gave me was clean and bright. Mr. Kui was also incredibly kind to me. Compared to my old room, a dark, smoky kitchen, this place was heaven. The dim yellow bulb that had once barely lit my life was now replaced by a bright white light, as if it had illuminated a new path I never thought I could take. Mrs. Kui found me some of her daughter's old clothes, and that evening, Mrs. Zhang came over to keep me company. Mrs. Wang and Mrs. Li also stopped by, bringing me extra clothes for school. We all sat together on the heated brick bed, gazing at the starry sky outside. After a long silence, Mrs. Kui suddenly spoke. "Do you know why my name is Claire?" she asked, using the Americanized version of her name. "Because my parents wanted a son. My birth name was actually Little Brother, as if they were hoping their next child would be a boy." Mrs. Wang let out a wry laugh. "My name is Wendy, but my birth name was Baby Brother, same reason. My parents wanted another boy." Mrs. Zhang, sitting cross-legged, snorted. "Women have always been treated unfairly. If we don't give birth to sons, we're ridiculed. If we're too strong-willed, we're called shrews. If we're too soft, we're trampled on. No matter what we do, someone always has something to say. I gave birth to 2 daughters, and my mother-in-law spent her whole life criticizing me for it. But now, my girls both work and live in the city, and guess what? That same mother-in-law now shamelessly tries to cozy up to them." The women talked for a long time before finally turning their attention back to me. "Emma, the scholarship from the local businesses will cover your tuition," Mrs. Kui said. "And we know you're determined. You'll probably work part-time to earn your own money, and that's a good thing, it'll toughen you up. But you're still a student. You shouldn't have to suffer too much." Mrs. Wang nodded. "Life is already full of hardships. You don't have to carry more than you need to." "We talked it over," Mrs. Zhang added. "We're not rich, but between the 4 of us, we can put together $600 a month for your living expenses." I choked up, my voice barely a whisper. "I can't accept this." Mrs. Zhang wiped my tears away. "You must. This is your chance to change your fate, Emma. Do you know how many people wish they could be in your shoes but never got the opportunity? Besides, both of your older sisters already agreed to help," Mrs. Zhang added. "Many people say that those of us from the countryside are just uneducated troublemakers. Some think we're all scheming and cruel, willing to harm others for our own benefit. There are certainly heartless people among us, but Emma, no matter what happens while protecting yourself, you must also believe that there are still more good people in this world than bad. Not all rural folks are the villains they think we are." I broke down in uncontrollable sobs. It was as if all the years of suffering I had endured had finally found a way out. The parents who gave birth to me and raised me saw me as nothing more than a worthless burden. In my past life, after squeezing every bit of value out of me, they even tried to sell my corpse, draining me dry until my last breath. And yet, in this same world, there were people. People who had no obligation to me, willing to help a stranger like me. I had stood countless times at the top of the mountain, looking up at the night sky, searching for a path forward. I never realized that the stars had already bestowed a gift upon me. The kindness of these simple, honest villagers was holding me up, guiding me toward my future. Mrs. Kui hugged me tightly. "They mock the 4 of us for being hens that can't lay eggs, saying that because we have no sons, we'll never know the joy of grandchildren. We've experienced the sting of being devalued as women ourselves. That's why we refuse to continue the cycle of harm. Those who look down on their own daughters will face their karma one day." I straightened up and said firmly, "The 4 of you have shown me more kindness than I ever expected. I will repay you one day." They exchanged smiles. "Emma, don't think about repaying us," Mrs. Zhang said. "Just go out into the world and see what's beyond this place. Study hard, prove to everyone that a girl from the countryside can succeed. Don't talk about repayment," Mrs. Kui added. "Otherwise, some gossipers will start saying we're helping you just to get something in return. Child, just focus on your studies. That's the only thing that matters." Tears streamed down my face again, and I sobbed myself to sleep that night. Mrs. Zhang sat beside me, fanning me gently. A cool breeze swept through the room. Outside, the stars stretched endlessly across the sky, and for the first time, my path forward seemed a little clearer, a little brighter. A few days later, Mr. Thompson's daughter brought a group of business owners to the village to provide scholarships. Besides me, 2 other students also received funding. My parents stood outside the crowd, gritting their teeth in frustration. Ryan stood there silently, his eyes fixed on the check in my hands. The 4 women surrounded me, making sure my parents couldn't get close. On the way back from seeing off the business owners, I spotted my parents standing under the old tree at the village entrance. My father spat on the ground and sneered, "She can't even take care of her own family, and you all think she'll bring you good fortune? Let me tell you, once she finishes college, she'll still have to get married. And when she does, the dowry money will still belong to the Smith family." Mrs. Wang, unable to contain her fury, stormed up and kicked my father square in the chest, sending him sprawling to the ground. "You wretched old bastard. With any luck, you and your wife won't even live long enough to see her wedding. Your beloved son can take care of your funeral instead." My father struggled to get up, but he couldn't. My mother was no match for the four women either. She had completely underestimated their strength. Desperate, she dropped to her knees and started wailing, "Emma, you heartless child, I'm your mother. Are you really going to stand there and let them beat me?" This time, I crouched down beside her, brushing a loose strand of hair from her forehead. My voice was calm, but my words cut deep. "You don't deserve to be called a mother," she gasped, eyes widening in disbelief. "You're a woman too," I continued. "Yet you chose to throw your own daughter under the bus just to please a lazy, gluttonous, useless man. You trampled on my dignity over and over again, draining me dry just so you could present the blood and tears of your daughter to your husband and son, hoping it would make you look like a perfect, obedient wife. If my father is just a rotten, feudal-minded man, then you are worse. Because you knew. You knew how hard it is for a woman to survive in this world, and yet, you still did everything in your power to destroy me." I stared straight into her eyes. "You don't deserve to be my mother, Susan Smith." The four women surrounded me as I walked away. Behind me, my mother's cries grew louder, and my father's curses rang through the air. They always did this. Always putting on a show, as if this ridiculous, absurd spectacle somehow made them important. As if turning themselves into the center of attention gave meaning to their otherwise insignificant lives. It was the same in my past life. Every time I tried to reason with my mother, telling her how difficult life was for a girl, she would laugh sharply, her voice echoing through our tiny courtyard. She had thrown a dirty rag in my face and spat cruel words at me. "Study? You? At your age, you should be getting married, not going back to school. If it weren't for the fact that your brother isn't married yet and we don't know how much money his wedding will cost, I would have married you off a long time ago. Go back to school? Take a good look at yourself in the mirror first. You were born to be a servant. Stop dreaming beyond your station." Every time my mother hurled these venomous words at me, her face would flush red, veins bulging in her neck as if she were in the midst of some grand battle. She would unleash all her frustrations onto me, as though my mere existence was the source of her misery. Sometimes, I thought she had a natural talent for finding the cruelest ways to stab me where it hurt the most. There was a time when I sympathized with her struggles as a woman, but she never once showed me the same understanding. In her eyes, women were nothing more than tools, and the only thing that mattered in our family was her son. No matter how indifferent or lifeless her face was, Ryan's every action could still capture all of her attention. Despite everything, my days in Goldwater Village had softened somewhat, thanks to Mr. Thompson, the four kind women, and the other generous villagers. On the day of my departure, many villagers walked me to the bus stop. They had gathered all sorts of things to send me off: fruit picked by Mr. Lee, walnuts from Uncle Chian, daily necessities from the shopkeeper's wife. When I was younger and often went hungry, they would sneak me into their homes for meals behind my mother's back. When they saw me struggling to walk miles to school, some of them had even tried to help pay my dormitory fees, only for my mother to snatch the money and use it to buy new clothes for Ryan instead. Tears blurred my vision as I stepped onto the bus. Through the window, I waved at them one last time. Inside the bags they had given me, without exception, were small bills tucked away, 50s, 20s, whatever they could spare. When I counted them later, they added up to $732. The bus drove on, and the figures outside shrank into tiny black dots on the horizon. They were still standing there, watching me leave. My vision blurred once more. Just as Mr. Thompson had said, I was no longer the daughter of the Smith family. I was now a daughter of Goldwater Village. The journey to my university was long. First, I had to take the village bus to the nearest town, then switch to a city bus to reach the train station. By the time I arrived at school, an entire day had passed. My class had 40 students, with only 8 girls. Each dorm housed 4 people, and my 3 roommates were all city girls from different parts of the country, some from the north, some from the south. Their accents were much more polished than mine. A small part of me, that fragile pride I had clung to all my life, made me cautious around them at first. But to my surprise, they were incredibly kind to me. When I told them I had come from a rural village, they didn't look down on me. Instead, they gave me a thumbs up. Considering the schools in your area, making it here must have taken incredible effort. That's amazing. The 4 of us became inseparable. They were thoughtful in ways I never expected. Whenever we got food from the cafeteria, they would always grab extra, insisting that we share. "I can't finish all this," they would say, passing me their portions. "Help me eat some." They claimed to love the simple vegetable dishes on my plate, trading their chicken legs and stir-fried meats with me without a second thought. During our first class meeting, when someone mocked my less-than-perfect accent, they immediately defended me. Most of our classmates were from the city. Some of them refused to believe that I had once walked miles through the mountains just to get to school. "Show us proof," they demanded, laughing. Others from neighboring dorms called me a country bumpkin or attention seeker. One boy even raised his hand during English class and smugly declared, "Emma has the best pronunciation in our class." Before I could react, my roommates had already stepped up for me. Shenmin said coldly, "If a girl from the countryside made it to the same university as you, someone from the best high school in the city, who do you think is actually more impressive?" Li Shengnan added, "So what if her English isn't perfect? Emma practices every single day. She works harder than all of you who slacked off the moment you got into college." Chen Sisi glared at the girls who had mocked me. "You claim to be all about fairness and respect, but you secretly bully your own classmates. We respect your opinions, but you have no right to judge someone's worth. Everyone wants to act like a righteous judge, but you're all wearing tinted glasses, deciding who's worthy and who isn't. You talk about standing against school bullying, yet everything you do is disgusting." Their words silenced the entire room. Of course, not everyone was convinced. Someone from the back sneered, "Coward. You're only brave when you have people to hide behind." This time, I stepped forward, standing between my friends and the ones who had insulted me. My voice was steady, unwavering. "I have fought 1,000 times harder than any of you to stand here today. I worked my way to this very spot. And yet, before I've even done anything, you look at me with judgment, mockery, and disdain. It's as if, through me, you get to validate every stereotype you've ever had about rural girls, poor, pathetic, insignificant." I met their gazes one by one. If belittling me gives you a sense of superiority, then I don't know who is truly more pitiful. After all, even the best education couldn't stop some of you from turning out to be complete garbage. My words left them speechless, cutting off any arguments they wanted to make. As we walked out of the classroom, my friends pulled me into a tight hug. "Emma, you're incredible. Really." I threw myself fully into my college life. I understood the surge of the internet age and foresaw the direction in which professional education would develop. The industry would rise and fall, but if I could seize the right opportunities, I might be able to take control of my own fate. I was born and raised in a rural village, and with the rise of the internet, I was determined to find a way to integrate technology with agricultural development. But that wasn't something that could be accomplished overnight. Knowledge, experience, and the right platform, all of them were essential. At a time when most people were still using Nokia phones, I was already paying close attention to the explosive growth of the internet and the rapid development of digital technology. For computer science graduates like me, we were stepping into what would soon become a golden age of technological opportunity. I devoted myself to my studies while working part-time at the library. Outside of class, I collaborated with Shen Min, Chen Sisi, and Li Shengmen to launch small projects within the school. During the YB 2.0 era, we built a web-based platform connecting students from different universities. Each school had its own dedicated section, further divided into categories such as daily life sharing, anonymous confession boards, and social networking areas. We even invited official school organizations to use our platform as a communication channel. At first, user registrations were slow. To attract more attention, we organized nationwide campus prince and princess contests, which quickly brought in our first wave of users. Before long, advertisers started reaching out, wanting to buy banner placements on our site. The advertising revenue changed our lives. I no longer had to live frugally, and more importantly, I no longer needed to rely on the 4 women who had been sending me money. But they refused to listen when I told them I didn't need their support anymore. They insisted I was just being stubborn and continued to send money every month. I left that bank card untouched, deciding to return it to them when the time was right. Later, a major corporation approached us with an acquisition offer. Shen Min and Li Shengnan were reluctant to sell. But I explained to them that we had only capitalized on the early-stage internet boom, taking advantage of the fact that mobile technology was still underdeveloped. One day, I told them firmly, when smartphones have more storage and apps replace web pages, our platform will become obsolete. Instead of waiting for that, we should sell now, take the money, and have a more sustainable path forward. Chen Cece laughed. Emma, when you talk about this, you look like you're glowing. Li Shengnan and Shen Min finally relented. Looks like those business courses you audited paid off, they joked. We trust you. In 2005, we sold our university network project for $1.8 million to a major tech company. It was our first big win. By 2006, we graduated from college. Having studied the rise of major corporations, I deliberately avoided direct competition with industry giants. Instead of targeting the markets they dominated, I carved out opportunities in areas they overlooked. While most companies were focusing on B2C business-to-consumer models, we turned our attention to C2C, consumer-to-consumer, commerce, secondhand goods, and resale markets. Our platform offered transaction verification and buyer-seller protections, gradually earning us a solid reputation. As competitors flooded into the space, we pivoted, moving away from low-value goods and shifting towards second-hand luxury car sales and rental services. We established partnerships with car dealerships in major cities, recruited influencers to promote our brand, and built a presence on Weibo, leveraging social media to solidify our reputation. By 2010, as smartphones surged in popularity, we adapted, developing an Android and iOS app for our car rental services. Some of our funds were also invested in commercial real estate in Tier 1 cities. That year, the 4 of us bought our own apartments in Shanghai. I smiled at my friends and said, in 10 years, these properties will be worth 10 times what we paid. Do you believe me? They laughed and shook their heads. No way. Our company continued to grow steadily. I had gradually shed the insecurities and sensitivities of my rural upbringing, transforming into someone confident and unshaken. But fate always had a way of throwing unexpected challenges in my path. As I began inviting the 4 women to Shanghai more frequently, making sure they enjoyed a comfortable life, and setting up an annual scholarship fund for underprivileged students in Goldwater Village, my parents somehow managed to track me down. Despite knowing little about my business ventures, they had scoured every connection they could find and eventually located my office in Shanghai. Then, in front of my employees and colleagues, they burst into my office, wailing and throwing a fit. Tears and snot smeared across their faces as my father bellowed, "You ungrateful daughter. For so many years, you've treated Mrs. Zhang and Mrs. Kui like your real mothers, while completely ignoring the lives and deaths of your biological parents. Now that you're doing well, are you just going to abandon us in the countryside to fend for ourselves?" I had known this day would come ever since I started my own business. That was why, in the early days of my company, I had already shared my story. Every single employee in my office, along with my closest friends, knew exactly what kind of shameless parasites my parents were. When my parents saw that the people around them remained cold and indifferent, their expressions shifted. Instead of backing down, they became even more shameless. My father flopped onto my office desk, playing the victim. Your brother wants to study abroad. Give us the money. I scoffed. If you love him so much, why don't you pay for it yourselves? Seeing that neither threats nor pleading worked on me, my mother yanked my arm. Then come home with me. We've found you a good marriage match. The dowry will be used to send your brother abroad. Their minds were utterly muddled, but the one thing they could always grasp clearly was their core belief that their son was the center of the universe. I called security to throw them out. Before long, Ryan appeared outside my company, making a scene. He yelled at the top of his lungs, "Emma, now that you've made it, you're just going to abandon your own family?" He waved a camera in my face. "Do you want me to expose you? Let's see who'll still want to do business with you after that. If we can't live well, then don't think you can either. You're just a woman. How dare you have a better life than me? You're part of the Smith family. Your money belongs to us. This company should belong to us. Emma, you owe me." I stared at him, his face flushed red with rage, veins bulging in his neck. "Ryan Smith," I said slowly. "Your name means soaring high in the clouds. But do you know what my name was supposed to be when I was born? Your wonderful parents originally wanted to name me Little Brother." I stepped closer, my voice unwavering. "Tell me, what exactly do I owe you? Was I meant to be nothing but dirt under your feet?" Security dragged them away. Afterward, my colleagues came to comfort me. Li Shengnan and the others stayed by my side for hours, not leaving until I assured them, over and over again, that my heart was made of steel. Li Shengnan sighed. "My name means stronger than any man. My parents gave it to me because they wanted a son, but ended up with me instead. My mother lost the ability to have children after I was born, so even though people saw me as an only child, I always knew they wished I had been a boy. I never suffered, but I understand what it feels like. If I had a brother, maybe my life would have turned out very differently." I stood by the window, looking down at the endless stream of traffic below. Our lives will only get better. The next day, the incident at my office made it into several newspapers in the South. The scandal spread like wildfire on Weibo, stirring up a storm of public opinion. Some accused me of abandoning my parents after becoming successful. Others called me selfish and ungrateful, labeling me a hypocrite. Doxing, online harassment, and vicious attacks flooded in from all directions. But then, the village chief, the 4 women, and several other villagers voluntarily recorded videos defending me. I also posted a calm and factual account of my childhood on my personal social media. The tide of public opinion quickly shifted. Still, some people continued to shout, "They're your parents. No matter what, you can't treat them like that." I didn't bother responding to these brainless comments, but Ryan didn't give up so easily. Day after day, he loitered outside my apartment complex, waiting for me. He begged for money, standing under the scorching sun for hours on end, unwilling to leave. Eventually, he managed to catch me as I was coming home. I stared at the boy who shared my features, his face now twisted with resentment, his eyes burning with hatred. He grabbed my wrist, his grip tight and unyielding. "Emma, you're a big boss now. Why can't you help me? Help me." I looked at him calmly. "Ryan, what if your sister had never gone to college? What if she had been just another factory worker? What would you have done then?" He hesitated, stunned by my question. Then his expression darkened. "Mom and Dad always said they should have never let you study that. You've been brainwashed. You don't even recognize your own family anymore. If you were just a factory worker, Mom and Dad would have arranged a good marriage for you. They would have used your dowry money to fulfill my dreams." I let out a cold laugh. "Don't blame your failures on me, Ryan." Just as I finished speaking, Mrs. Zhang and the others came out from the apartment building. They surrounded me like protective mother hens, shielding me from him. Mrs. La Zhang pointed at Ryan and snapped, "Stay away from Emma." Ryan sneered, "You ignore your real parents but treat these old women like family. They're not childless. Why do you think it's your job to take care of them?" At that moment, I felt like a lioness ready to pounce. I grabbed him by the collar and slapped him across the face. "They are my family," I said coldly. "They were the ones who fed me when I was a child. They were the ones who cared for me as I grew up. They were the ones who pooled their money every month so I could survive. Not everyone is as selfish as you. Some people actually understand gratitude. I returned home with the 4 women, and for the first time in years, it felt like that summer night after my high school exams. We lay on the same bed together, just like before. I rested my head on Mrs. Kui's shoulder, breathing in the comforting scent of soap on her clothes. "Emma, don't worry," Mrs. Zhang reassured me. "We'll always protect you." Back when I first started my company, I had invited their daughters to join me. But they refused. If we worked at the same company, our relationship would change, they told me. No matter what, we can't let greed taint the bond between our mothers and you. They were right. Once greed takes hold, no matter how strong a relationship is, it starts to rot. They also warned me not to let morality become a burden, to never let others guilt me into standing on a pedestal. The next morning, the 4 of them were gone. Their luggage was missing too. On the table, they had left a homemade breakfast and a note. "Emma, don't worry. We'll protect you. We're heading home first." I immediately called Mrs. Zhang. In the background, I could hear the chaos, my parents' angry shouting, Ryan's furious outbursts. "Emma, don't worry," she said firmly. "We're taking them back to the village. They won't bother you anymore. We won't let them hurt you again." Then, suddenly, there was a scream, the sound of people running, the call cut off. Panic surged in my chest like never before. Moments later, Mrs. Kui called me back. Her voice was shaking. "Emma, Mrs. Zhang, she's been stabbed. Ryan did it. We're on the way to the hospital now." I drove straight there, my hands gripping the wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. At the hospital, I found the 3 other women sitting in shock, still pale from what had happened. Police officers stood nearby, taking statements. "Ryan lost it," Mrs. Kui explained, her voice hoarse. "He grabbed a fruit knife and stabbed Mrs. Zhang 3 times. He ran before the train even left." Mrs. Zhang had lost a dangerous amount of blood, but after a long, grueling surgery, she finally pulled through. Her 2 daughters rushed in from out of state, arriving at the hospital in a panic. Ryan was arrested soon after. As for my parents, they came to see me, not to apologize, not to check on Mrs. Zhang, but to beg me to pay for a lawyer to get Ryan out of jail. "Wake up," I said, my voice icy. "He stabbed someone 3 times in a public place. That's felony assault. How do you think I can pull some strings to get him out of this?" They still didn't give up. Somehow, they managed to find a lawyer and tried to pressure Mrs. Zhang into signing a settlement. I threw them out. When Mrs. Zhang finally woke up, the first thing she did was grab my hand. "Emma, are you safe? I was afraid your brother would come after you next." Guilt flooded my chest. "This is our fault," she murmured. "We underestimated him." Mrs. Kuai, Mrs. Wang, and Mrs. Li all sat beside her, heads lowered, looking like children who had been scolded. I tried to steady my voice, but tears still slipped down my cheeks, falling onto the back of Mrs. Zhang's hand, where an IV needle was taped down. "From now on, you're my mother's," I whispered. Her hand trembled slightly. From the other side of the room, a woman snickered. "How touching. But isn't that a bit dramatic?" Mrs. Wang shot her a glare. "Mind your own damn business." The woman scoffed and turned away, silenced. Mrs. Zhang patted my hand gently. "Go back to work, child. You have important things to do." I hesitated, then finally nodded. "I'll go back, but I'm taking you all with me." They looked at me in surprise. "I never told you before, but we've already started our rural development project," I said. Mrs. Li blinked. "Rural development? You mean helping farmers?" I nodded. "The village chief's daughter, Linda, is now a key official in poverty alleviation programs. My entire business is rooted in the internet. But no matter how advanced technology becomes, commerce will always need real-world applications. If there's no solid foundation, it's nothing more than an illusion waiting to be blown away by the wind. Our village has sugarcane, traditional brown sugar workshops, tea plantations, and other fruits. We don't lack products, we lack efficient logistics, storage, and sales channels. That's what I'm here to fix. And now that live streaming is becoming popular, getting in early gives us an advantage." Mrs. Wang hesitated. "Emma, you have so many painful memories tied to Goldwater Village. Why would you want to come back?" I shook my head. If it weren't for all of you, for Mr. Thompson, and for the kind-hearted villagers, I probably would have starved or frozen to death as a child. I never would have been lucky enough to go to college. You all reached out a hand to help me, so now that I have the ability, I want to do the same for Goldwater Village. More than that, I want the girls here, and in other villages like this one, to have the chance to go to school, to eat well, to have warm clothes, to sleep in safe dormitories, and to study without worry. I want them to have the power to change their destinies. Mrs. Zhang stayed in the hospital for a month. By the time she was discharged, I had set most of my business affairs in order. Shen Min, Li Shengnan, Chen Sisi, and I once again stood at a crossroads, ready to make a new decision for the future. This time, just like before, they stood by me without hesitation. We sold most of our company's second-hand car sales, luxury rentals, and ride-hailing businesses to other firms. A portion of our funds was allocated to create a women's education fund, dedicated solely to helping girls pursue higher education. Shen Min returned to the Northeast to negotiate online distribution deals for their premium rice. Li Shengnan and Chen Sisi, passionate about preserving traditional Chinese culture, began traveling across the country to rediscover lost crafts, Suzhou embroidery, regional hand-painted fans, and modern clothing infused with classic Chinese aesthetics. And I returned to Goldwater Village with the 4 women who had raised me. Linda, the village chief's daughter, wanted me to stay at a guest house in the city, but I shook my head. Linda, I grew up in Goldwater Village. No matter how badly my parents treated me, I can't deny the kindness of the others here. My suffering didn't come from the village. It came from my family. There's no need for me to cover that up. Linda chuckled. You really have a sharp tongue now, Emma. Definitely a city girl through and through. I smiled. Linda, I've always wanted to thank you. She looked at me in surprise. Thank me? For what? Years ago, Mr. Thompson told me it was you who registered my household record. Thank you for taking the risk, knowing full well my parents would throw a tantrum. Thank you for changing my name to Emma Smith, instead of calling me Little Brother. I returned to Goldwater Village at last. The villagers were curious about me. I hadn't visited in years, except to quietly send a few people who had helped me on small trips outside the village. Linda stood on the community stage and announced, the scholarship fund that has helped several girls in our village go to school was created by Emma. This time, she's back to help us develop for the future. She pulled me forward and insisted I say a few words. Suddenly, memories of that long-ago summer flooded back. I had once knelt on these stone steps, humiliated. It was the villagers who had stood behind me, shielding me from my parents. They had protected my dignity and my fragile soul when I had nothing left. For years, I had chased every major trend in industry, riding the waves of development, accumulating resources, all for this moment. For the right time, when everything was in place, to return here and lead everyone toward a better future. I knew there would always be divides in this world. Some people would go to college while others wouldn't. Some would live in cities while others remained in villages. But at the very least, I wanted to give people a choice. I stood on the stage. In the crowd, Mr. Thompson sat in his rocking chair. The 4 women who had raised me sat on a bench, watching me with bright eyes. Mr. Li and Uncle Qian smiled warmly from below the stage. I hadn't come back to show off my success. I had come back so that the children of Goldwater Village could have choices. Years ago, right here, my 4 mothers had protected my dignity. Mr. Thompson had fought for my right to an education. The villagers had shielded me, refusing to let my parents ruin my future. To be honest, over the years I had faced discrimination for coming from a rural background. People looked down on me, called me cunning, and assumed I was deceitful. They slapped labels on us, branding us as small-minded troublemakers. I couldn't deny that bad people existed, and I couldn't completely argue against the saying that harsh environments breed ruthless individuals. But that was precisely why we needed to grow, to step out and see the world beyond our villages. Our children needed to go to school to prove to the world that rural people weren't just the negative stereotypes shown on TV. Once I started achieving real success, no one dared to laugh at my background anymore. I had brought in sales channels, negotiated logistics and warehousing deals. This time, it was my turn to lead the way for everyone else. Applause erupted from the crowd. Some people scoffed, unimpressed, but those people had never been part of my vision for rural development to begin with. I knew exactly which battles were worth fighting. I sat down with Linda to discuss our initial plans, brand promotion, packaging design, product shelf life, and the setup of food processing factories. By the time we finished talking, the sun had set. Mr. Thompson invited me to stay for dinner. After taking a sip of wine, he suddenly asked, "I told you years ago, if you ever found a way out, don't come back to your parents' den of wolves. Why did you return to Goldwater Village?" I smiled. Because when I left for college, the villagers gathered food, drinks, and supplies for me. Every family gave me something, little bags filled with whatever they could spare. When I counted, it added up to $732. We weren't related. They didn't have to do that for me. But they did. I'll never forget that kindness. Mr. Thompson nodded, his eyes filled with warmth. Good kid, good kid. Mrs. Kui came to pick me up. As we walked down the rural path, she held my hand tightly. "Emma, have you really thought this through? People are unpredictable. Even if you mean well, not everyone will appreciate what you're trying to do." "Mom, don't worry," I reassured her. Before I could finish speaking, my birth mother suddenly appeared out of nowhere, her hair a mess, her face wild. She lunged toward me. "Now that you have money, you've gone and found other mothers? Emma, I gave birth to you." I ignored her and followed Mrs. Kui home. But she was relentless, trailing behind me like a shadow, until Mr. Kui finally threw her out. In the months that followed, we took full advantage of the rising trend of live streaming to promote Goldwater Village's agricultural products. Once the villagers saw real profits rolling in, everyone became enthusiastic and highly motivated. Years ago, when we worked in the luxury car business, we had built strong relationships with car influencers. Now that short videos and live streaming had taken off, those same influencers had pivoted their content. With their help, we coordinated an event where 99 luxury cars lined up at the entrance of Goldwater Village. It was an eye-catching spectacle, one that seamlessly merged car culture with rural revitalization. Goldwater Village became a sensation across the internet. Some of the influencers who knew me teased, "Emma, sometimes we think you must be a time traveler. How do you always predict the next big thing? If it weren't for you telling us to build a presence on Weibo early on, we never would have gained traction." Then you pointed us toward short videos and live streaming. "I don't know how you do it." I chuckled. "Maybe I am a time traveler." No one knew the truth. In my past life as a factory worker, I had spent every spare moment glued to my phone, scrolling through short videos. I had seen firsthand how quickly short videos and live streaming would dominate. And I knew that the key to integrating agriculture with the digital economy lay in this connection. After multiple joint brand promotional campaigns, we kept the momentum going and established AgriSelect, a specialized e-commerce platform for agricultural products. Soon, it wasn't just Goldwater Village. Other communities that needed support began reaching out to us for assistance. Shenmin successfully brought premium northeastern rice into the international market. Chen Cixi and Li Shengnan expanded our company's neo-Chinese fashion line in the Jiangsu Zhejiang region, and sales skyrocketed. Our AgriSelect platform quickly became the most popular agricultural marketplace in the country. Most families in Goldwater Village found their path to prosperity. The traditional brown sugar workshops attracted investors, skyrocketing to the top 3 best-selling products on the e-commerce platform. The oranges from Goldwater Village were now shipped nationwide. Mrs. Wang and Mrs. Kuai's handcrafted paper-cut window decorations became sought-after art pieces, with sales soaring. Their success even inspired women from neighboring villages to start their own original paper-cutting designs. Mrs. Zhang's handmade steamed buns became so popular that she was producing tens of millions of them. I created a short video account for her to teach others how to make them, and within a month, she had gained over 500,000 followers. Mrs. Li, who had always loved cooking, turned her passion into a business. Her homemade sauces and seasonings became a brand of their own, Mrs. Li's Dips and Spices, quickly securing a solid foothold in the condiment market. Our businesses flourished, and everyone in the village poured their energy into creating a better future. Once Goldwater Village's brand had stabilized, the Goldwater Fund officially stepped back from local commerce. From then on, the fund focused solely on helping rural girls receive an education. My former high school constructed a brand new dormitory building. Any child from the surrounding areas could live there for free. No student would ever have to walk miles through the mountains to get an education again. Our product lines expanded, and as our recruitment needs grew, we structured our businesses to create more jobs for women. For example, in our mother and baby product division, we prioritized hiring mothers, because who understood baby products better than women who had raised children themselves? One day, a fortune teller saw me and said, "The era of the 9 suns leaving fire is coming, and the purple star is rising. This is an age of opportunity for women, and you are part of it." I didn't fully grasp his words until he walked away. I glanced at Shen Min and the others. We exchanged knowing smiles and, in unison, said, "The purple star isn't just one person. It's all the women waking up and finding their strength." When Ryan was released from prison, my mother was so overwhelmed with emotion that she fainted and was hospitalized. While doctors were still running tests to determine the cause, my father had already called a marriage broker. Ryan overheard the conversation at the hospital. He snapped. Right then and there, he kicked and punched my father in a violent rage. But my father, sobbing, insisted that he was doing it for him. "If we can't afford your mother's medical treatment, we can at least sell Emma off and make some money to help you start over," he reasoned. This time, Ryan didn't just let it slide. He stared at my father with a chilling expression. "If you dare refuse to treat Mom, I will never acknowledge you as my father again. Emma already disowned you. Do you want me to do the same?" For the first time, my father was left speechless. This was all village gossip. I never saw it happen myself. My mother eventually woke up. Ryan took her and my father away from the village. Before he left, he came to see me. "Emma," he said, his voice uncharacteristically quiet, "I'm sorry for everything, for all these years of mistreating you. Prison made me realize how disgraceful we were. It wasn't you who should have been ashamed, it was me and our parents. From now on, I'll take care of them. You don't have to." My mother also tried to mend our relationship, but I shut the door in her face. She cried, shouting, "I'm sorry, I was a terrible mother." But it was too late, wasn't it? She only came to this realization when she was lying in a hospital bed, facing death, and hearing her husband plot to sell her off like a commodity. All her life, she had worshipped her husband and son, using me to prop up her self-worth. But the damage she inflicted on me wasn't something time could erase. I could let go of the past, but I could never forgive it. And no one had the right to tell me that I should. 3 years after AgriSelect was founded, our anniversary live stream surpassed 1 million viewers. It was the same community stage. The same people. Only this time, I wasn't the girl kneeling in humiliation. I stood tall, handing out scholarships to young students from our village. Goldwater Village would never again have children who couldn't afford to go to school. Standing on that stage, I looked at the young girls in the audience. No matter where life takes you, don't forget to keep moving forward. Your journey may be illuminated by those who help you along the way, but only you can walk the path yourself. So keep going. Never stop. When times are tough, change must happen. Someone has to take the first step. The lights of Goldwater Village grew brighter with each passing day, and they would never fade again.